that were made this week at the deadline. Are we content with what the Chiefs did? All that is coming up later on in the show as well. Dan was at K-State last night for K-State versus Washburn. We'll get some final thoughts on how K-State looked in exhibition play.
Tall.
Athletic.
Bouncy. Long.
Not stuck in the mud on every offensive possession.
Playing hard without a chart needed to show for it.
We also will get to the college football playoff rankings. Was the committee fair to the Big 12? And also, we're going to do our own personal top whatever. Constantly that you followed Spencer Hall, the great college football writer and personality. He's been doing the top whatever for I don't even know how many years. And essentially, college football things, non-college football things, college football adjacent things. So we're going to go with our own top 5 ranking of something in college football. It could be top 5 fun teams in the country, top 5 teams that deserve to be in the playoffs, whatever it might end up being. We'll get to our top 5 coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll get to our 5 sports headlines. We've got What Is Wrong With You today. We'll play One Gotta Go. Tim Fitzgerald is going to join us coming up at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for our Azura Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up. And coming up at the bottom of this hour, we've got our Wendy's High School Athletes of the Week, the state champions. In girls Class 6A volleyball, the Washburn Rural Junior Blues got to talk to their head coach Kevin Bordewick today. So we'll hear from Bordy and some talk about the state championship for Washburn Rural. All that and more is coming up today on 580 Sports Talk. We would love for you to be involved in the show as always on the Big O Tire text line 785-272-9429. And you are also welcome to join us on YouTube as well. YouTube. Sports on 580 WWW is the account. That is the channel. If you're subscribed already, boom, you'll be right on your front page. And we are live right now. If you've got a bookmark, click on it. Head over to our channel. You'll see us right at the top of the page. Had some minor technical difficulties at the end of the 2 o'clock or the 4 o'clock hours yesterday. Got that all figured out. So we are locked and loaded, ready to go for the rest of the show today. Very happy about that.
Me leaving is really what kind of caused everything to fall into disrepair.
It is.
And I apologize for that. Hand up. That one's on me. We'll get it fixed. We'll get it hammered out.
In fact, this is, again, why the YouTube is great for us, because we can get the instant reaction that, hey, Brendan, something's jacked up with your mic again. Boom, I can fix it right away. Now nothing is jacked up with my mic again. We are all set. So sorry about that. But YouTube, go check it out. We are with you for the next 3 hours. Appreciate you guys joining us. I also have to bring this up, Dan, before we get to KU and Bill Self. Were you and Jake by chance listening to the show on your way to Manhattan yesterday after you left at 4:30?
Are you referring to a comment you may have made during Jayhawk Weekly with Michael Swain?
I am. That was easily the worst Freudian slip I've ever had.
I heard it back. I went back. I saw you had made some mention to it on Twitter, so I went back and said, "Well, geez, what did Brendan say? What's he so upset about himself saying?" You could have given me 100 guesses. I don't think I would have landed on that. It's really funny.
He picked Grady Dick to be a top 3 scorer for KU, and I just shortened up the sentence responding.
You liked that pick.
It was a good pick. I figured that was going to end up in our folder of great moments in show history.
100%.
I was so embarrassed. And Michael heard it right away. Michael Swain from Fog.net, who joined us yesterday, he heard it right away. And that was not great. That was not a great personal moment for me.
Listen.
Very funny, out of context, though.
Anybody who's been doing this for any amount of time, being behind a microphone that is live, that is hot, and talking extemporaneously about, really doesn't matter what the topic is, but sports in particular. If you have been behind the mic for any length of time and talking about sports extemporaneously, and you have not said something inadvertently sexually inappropriate, then you probably haven't been doing a very good job, or you haven't been doing it as long as you think you have.
It happens, man.
we have all been there.
At some point, I will be able to very easily laugh at that. Yesterday, at the end of the 4 o'clock hour, I certainly was not. But speaking of KU basketball, there was obviously big news from earlier today. Bill Self has been suspended by KU, a self-imposed suspension for both Bill Self and for his top assistant, Kurtis Townsend,
as a reaction to the fallout from the FBI case that is still ongoing, the IARP's case and ongoing investigation into Kansas basketball in the wake of the FBI investigation from 2017, yada, yada, yada. We all know the details at this point. So here is what is happening for KU. The list of the self-imposed penalties. Bill Self and Kurtis Townsend are going to miss the first 4 games of the regular season. So that does not include Thursday night exhibition game for KU versus Pitt State. A side note to that, they're unveiling, we talked about this yesterday late in the show, they're unveiling the Just Load the Wagon banner that fans put up following the death of Bill Self Sr. last year, kind of the rallying cry for the team. They're hanging that up on one of the side walls at Allen Fieldhouse tomorrow night. That's going to be awesome. But a lot of people said, why not do this in the regular season? Why are you doing this for an exhibition game? This is why they're doing it for the exhibition game, because Bill Self's going to be there. Now, they might do it at halftime. I don't know when at night they're going to do it. I assume halftime. So they wanted to, I'm sure, have Bill Self in the building to do it.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to be there for the first couple of home games.
No, he will miss the Omaha, North Dakota State, Southern Utah, and most notably Duke games. Obviously, Duke, not a home game. That's the Champions Classic out in Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
Two Thursdays from now, I believe it is.
That will be
the 15th.
Yes, you are correct, Dan. Two Tuesdays from now.
2 Tuesdays, excuse me.
Yeah, so 2 weeks from yesterday. So that's obviously the big one that Self is going to miss, and Townsend as well. So the 4-game suspension there. They were, as we talked about at the time, barred from off-campus recruiting for 4 months, April through July. We talked about that when that news broke. When people said, hey, why aren't they at Peach Jam or whatever else, the various Adidas AAU circuit tournaments? Well, this is exactly why. A reduction of 4 official recruiting visits during the next 2 academic years, this year included. A reduction of 3 scholarships in men's basketball to be distributed over the next 3 years. That's not necessarily a now issue. That's a KU future issue. But right now, if everybody comes back who they expect to come back next year, who's not either obviously going to the NBA or exhausting eligibility like Cam Martin, KU's already got 13 guys who are prepared to come in next year when you include the 3-man freshman class. Someone's going to have to transfer out. That's what that means. Someone's going to have to transfer out, but that's also college sports these days. Additionally, 6-week ban on recruiting communications, a 6-week ban on unofficial visits, and a 13-day reduction in recruiting days during this year, and no official visits for late night in the fog. ESPN had that listed as no recruiting visits, period. That's not entirely accurate. The difference between an official and an unofficial visit, the officials are paid for by the schools. Mm-hmm. That is your transport, your lot. That's all school covered.
And I believe prospects only get a finite number of those.
Correct. Yes. You only get 3, 5. I'm not sure the difference between basketball and football, but you're exactly right. There's a limited number. Unofficials, you get more of those, but
pay your own.
It's on your own dime. So all the kids who came for late night this year, it had to be an unofficial visit, which is not typical, which, again, understandable. So there's the discrepancy there. All in all, and we've got a question here. I actually don't know the answer from David, who's chiming in on the Sports on 580 YouTube. And again, appreciate you guys commenting there and on the Big O Tires text line. Do coaches get paid while suspended? I don't know. It realistically, tangibly, it doesn't really mean anything for Bill Self. He's got enough money, and he's got a lifetime's worth of money coming from KU. So I don't know. It's a good question. I just have no idea.
Yeah, that's not been made clear, I don't believe, in the course of either the ESPN reporting or the Kansas official press release.
I would imagine, and this is not a report, this is just total conjecture. I would imagine it would be unpaid, because I feel like we're putting them on paid suspension for 4 games isn't really punishment. That's just like a minor annoyance at that point.
Right.
For, basketball coaches are control freaks. They want to be there. I would imagine it's unpaid, but I have no idea.
Yeah, most suspensions are unpaid in situations like this.
The other thing we should note, too, about the suspension, so Self can coach during the days leading up to the game, but cannot have contact within 24 hours of the game. So, he could coach yesterday, but as of 7 o'clock tonight, cannot be in contact with the team. That's my understanding of it anyway, because the game tips off tomorrow, not for tomorrow's game, for the game on Monday.
Yeah, for Monday's game, 7 o'clock Sunday.
Yeah. So that is the punishment that has been laid out. There's a lot of different questions to ask about this, but I think the most important one for the long-term outlook for this program is this going to be enough? Is this going to be enough for the IARP folks to say, okay, you committed these penalties. They happened 5 or 6 years ago at this point. We're moving on. You've handled punishment. Everybody wants to move on from this. That's enough. Is this going to be most of what the IARP says and say, all right, well, hold on. We think there needs to be another reduction in recruiting days or whatever it might be.
Or a postseason ban or...
Well, and there it's the next part of that spectrum of is it enough is do they want to go to something even stronger than that, like a postseason ban? I would imagine it wouldn't go that far because we heard in the Memphis case, they didn't want to punish the current athletes in that case.
Right. That was the standard that they set when they ruled on the Memphis issue, was that they were looking to avoid penalties. And I don't remember how exactly it was worded, but they were looking to avoid penalties that would punish players with no involvement in what had happened.
Which is smart. That's how it should be.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. You know, you punish the parties that acted inappropriately. If that's on the coaching staff or if that's within the athletic department, those are the people who need to feel the brunt of the punishment. It's hard to be able to sell, I think, punishing kids who did nothing wrong other than choose a school that want to go play basketball there. Now, obviously, there have been postseason bans instituted in the past, and I think they have been, by and large, unfair to the players in question. But the IARP was explicit in saying that was something they were going to try to avoid. Douglas Gerard said in a statement, the chancellor of the University of Kansas, throughout this process, we've had ongoing conversations with all the involved parties. Now, I don't know if that means Bill Self and Kurtis Townsend. I don't know if that also extends to the IARP. I don't know who all the involved parties are. And I'm interested to know who all the involved parties are. But continuing the statement, we believe the actions we are announcing today move us closer to resolving this matter. We look forward to commenting further when this process is fully resolved. So I think that they anticipate that there might be more, but I'm sure that the hope today is, particularly after going to the mattresses for this and going to the mattresses for Bill Self and for Kurtis Townsend and for their basketball program, for Kansas to very suddenly and without much warning say, okay, yeah, we're doing all of this. We're going to suspend Bill. We're going to suspend Kurtis. We're going to self-impose scholarship limits starting next year, one scholarship fewer than the allotted 13 for the next 3 seasons, which is not a small punishment.
No.
And for them to do it kind of suddenly suggests to me that they are doing this in the hopes that this closes the chapter. Saying it will or it won't would be nothing but speculation on our part. But I certainly think that's the goal for Kansas, is to get out in front of this and say, this has gone on long enough. We feel like this is fair, maybe even more than fair. Certainly there will be some people probably purple clad within these states' lines that might disagree with that assessment, but that's how they feel about it in Lawrence today. And I do think they hope this closes the book.
I said this when we heard about the self-imposed recruiting restrictions in July, at the end of July. And we talked to Michael Swain about it. And I said at the time, it is a lot easier to do this when you're coming off a national championship. It is a lot easier to say, you know what? Fine. We'll take a step back when you just got to the mountaintop. You've got the long-term contract extension for your coach. You've got the second ring. He is untouchable at this point. And, you know, there are jokes, you know, mob boss-like jokes about saying that. But, I mean, it's true. Like, what are you going to do? Is KU going to fire him? No. I don't think any punishment that could come down would lead to Bill Self getting canned.
They gave him the lifetime deal while this investigation was in progress.
They gave him a lifetime deal with an interim AD. Okay. So this isn't even just like Travis Goff has that belief in Bill Self. Now, I believe he does, but this was the entire institution with an interim athletic director. Like, the Jeff Long wasn't even out the door yet when they were working on this contract for Bill Self, because the institution wants to keep him and does not believe he should go anywhere. So there's obviously that commitment there. I think it's a lot easier to say, all right, fine. will self-impose some things. We'll finally play ball for the first time in 5 years. We've got that championship. We've got a grace period essentially for the next year or two. Fine, whatever. Let's just move on. And let's get past this.
Travis Goff's comments kind of speak to that too. We are hopeful, in a statement, Travis Goff, we are hopeful these difficult self-imposed sanctions will assist in bringing the case to a conclusion. They're trying to grease the wheels and just be done with this, because once they're done, the IARP disbands.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're done forever and always. And the NCAA has already put into place what they're going to do next, what kind of system they're going to have in place for investigating things like these in the future. But yeah, Kansas right now sounds like they very much like to be done with this after fighting it. They understand that there has to be something, because there's been something for everybody else.
Do you think more is coming though? Like, do you think this will be enough for the members of the independent resolution panel to say, okay, fine?
It's so hard to tell because we just don't have a whole lot of precedent with this group.
Yeah.
But once the Memphis ruling came down from them, I felt fairly confident that the more extreme punishments, like a postseason ban, or has to be fired with a show cause, or revoked victories, or you take down the Final Four banner from 2018 or whatever, that kind of stuff. I have been pretty confident that kind of stuff wasn't coming from the IARP, just based on that one bit of precedent. And I mean, it's a small sample size. We have a ton of sample to work with here. So I could be completely off base, but I got to go with what the data we got, right? Even if it is a small sample. And in that small sample, that made me feel like the really extreme stuff, Thor's hammer, was not going to swing and land upon Kansas men's basketball. This felt a little bit more in line with what I kind of expected the final outcome to be. Maybe a little less, like maybe I thought a longer suspension for Self.
Yeah.
Or a longer suspension for Kurtis Townsend, or more time off the recruiting trail. But this certainly, in those matters, feels like KU's attempt at a compromise, even if they're not entirely nailing themselves to a cross here.
This might not be fair to Kurtis Townsend. I figured this entire time he was going to fall on the sword. I was figuring like 6 games for Bill Self and Kurtis Townsend gets a 3-year show cause. That's really what I thought this was going to be. And I think a lot of people thought that was going to be the case, because the NCAA does not have the benefit of the doubt, nor does it deserve the benefit of the doubt.
And we've seen assistant coaches take some big hit. Someone went to jail. Like Book Richardson went to jail.
Literal prison.
Yes.
The big house. Like that is what this case has led to. And I went back for reference. Jim Boeheim's name popped into my mind. Remember when he got suspended? You know how much time he got back in whatever year that was, 2015?
It was a whole non-conference schedule, wasn't it?
He got 9 games. And then they ended up losing 12 scholarships over 4 years. This case has brought more of a black eye to the NCAA, to the world of college basketball, frankly, and to a degree KU. But by the same token, like, people who thought that KU was playing dirty have always thought that. Like, this didn't change that perspective.
No.
But it has brought a black eye to basketball. People say, let's just go. Let's move on.
And it's hard for us, I think, to really get a handle on how it's perceived outside of Kansas.
Because we're so close to the situation.
Yes, you're an alum. We're 30 minutes from Lawrence. We're 45 minutes from Manhattan.
Yeah.
Like, so we're getting the most extreme end of the perspectives about actually KU shouldn't have to be punished that much, to actually disbanding their program would be more than fair.
Send him to a penal colony. Like, yeah, you end up with those kinds
Bill
of things.
Self for Guantanamo.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're so close to the situation. That's what we're going to get. I think most people, they hear this news now and they just say, oh my God, let's go. We're still talking about this. The only thing I will say, I would not be surprised if a little bit more came. But if there is like a big penalty, like take down the banner, you lose half a season of wins, Self is going to get suspended for another. Like, if you get some sort of major penalty, then I would say I wish KU had not done this. Like, if they're going to bring the hammer down anyway, then don't play ball. Just say screw it.
Right.
Kiss my backside.
Yeah, that was what North Carolina did.
And it worked.
Yeah, North Carolina went to the mattresses, basically agreed to devalue the quality of a degree
at a top 50 public school in the country.
At the University of North Carolina. Yeah, we got fraudulent classes. And what?
What are you going to do about it? Apparently nothing.
Yeah, the NCAA's response was shrugging his shoulders. So it's going to be Norm Roberts who coaches those 4 games. Norm Roberts is going to be the head coach. What's your feel for how things will look under Norm Roberts in those 4 games?
KU probably goes 3-1. I mean, you're going to beat Omaha. You're going to beat North Dakota State. You should beat Southern Utah because those are Omaha, North Dakota State, and Southern Utah. Like, you should beat those teams. You could not have a coach out there.
It could be you or me prowling the sidelines, and there'd still be a talent disparity that.
Bring Mitch Lightfoot back to coach the game. Like, you're going to beat those 3 teams. You probably lose to Duke. Like, I think.
Well, I mean,
Duke's got a whole new thing too with John Shire.
Yeah, John Shire will have as many or fewer games of experience as a head coach going into that one. And
Norm Roberts has been a head coach before. He was a head coach at St. John's.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot to account his. So more experience for Norm Roberts than John Shire, and probably similarly matched teams in terms of experience. Duke's got a whole bunch of new guys. They got one Letterman back.
Yeah. So Champions Classic's probably going to be messy.
It's always
messy. Is messy in the first place. Maybe games you would normally blow out the Southern Utahs are like 20-point games instead of 30-point games, but 4 games this part of the season not going to be much. It's a big, significant deal that his first game back is going to be in the Battle for Atlantis. That's a big deal against North Carolina State. That's the kind of game you want Bill Self coaching, and that's when he'll be back. He'll be coaching during practice anyway. I mean, it's
right.
It feels a little slap on the wristy, but if this gets this case done with, then fine.
Norm's not going rogue. He's not going to go out there like, I'm going with 5 bigs. Zach Clements is running the point. Daddy's away.
You thought Bob Huggins liked to press? Watch this. Full court. We got 4 in the backcourt. Like Javon Carter out there.
Bill Self in an undisclosed location listening to Brian Haney on the Jayhawk Radio Network. Zuby's bringing the ball up.
Fights Norm Roberts his first day back.
Cats and dogs living together.
Not going to lie, that would be hilarious. That would be at the top of like the last decade power rankings of crazy Kansas basketball years. I still think 16-17's at the top of that. Devontae Graham was briefly arrested. Carlton Bragg did his thing, got arrested as well.
Yeah.
You had the runaway situation at McCarthy Hall. That was you had the car getting destroyed by Josh Jackson and LaGerald Vick.
Yeah.
I still think that's number 1 of the last decade for wildest KU seasons. Bill Self fighting Norm Roberts, though, might become number 1 if that actually happened. We've got to take a time out here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, we'll play some One Gotta Go. We've got our Athletes of the Week coming up this hour as well, right here on 580 Sports Talk.
gotta go.
Time to play One Gotta Go here on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan on this Wednesday afternoon, November 2nd. Happy Cubs win the World Series Day, circa 2016, by the way. One of the probably 5 best days of my entire life. One Gotta Go. We're going to stick with college basketball here. Usually we do 4 subjects. I've got 6 for you today.
Okay.
Because that's how many players made the All Big 12 preseason men's team this year. Adam Flagler of Baylor, Jalen Wilson of Kansas, Mike Miles Jr. of TCU. They were all unanimous picks. Followed by Avery Anderson of Oklahoma State, and then both Timmy Allen and Marcus Carr of Texas. One of those 6 gotta go. Who is least deserving? Who do you like the least? Who does not belong on your preseason Big 12 team?
We sort of talked about this when this was announced, but Marcus Carr is my gut reaction here. Not because I don't think he's a talented basketball player, which he is, but it's a bit of a trick bag. Like, you don't know what you're going to get from Marcus Carr on a night in, night out basis. And when it doesn't go, it looks pretty ugly. It's either him or Avery Anderson, because I struggle to think of an Avery Anderson highlight. I struggle to think of a night where I was like, man, Avery Anderson really can't be held down tonight. Like, I can give you those for Marcus Carr. I've seen that. I know what that looks like. I know what it looks like for Timmy Allen. I know what it looks like for Mike Miles. I don't know what that looks like for Avery Anderson. So it's between those two. And I guess aesthetically, because sometimes he can get into a little bit of the, how do I want to put this? A little bit of irrational confidence that can go the wrong way and hurt his team. I would have to say Marcus Carr's got to go.
I originally thought Marcus Carr as well, but I am flipping my pick to Avery Anderson. And here is why. There is a very simple question. It is the Sean Clifford question, if you will, among other players. Is Avery Anderson good or is he old? Because Avery Anderson last year he was picked all Big 12 tournament team. He was picked all Big 12. I'm not remembering off the top of my head which team he made. Last season, Avery Anderson shot 39.9% from the field. He was a 32.4% three-point shooter, a 76% free throw shooter for 12.1 points a game, which was actually all down. All 4 of those stats were down from the year prior. His total rebounding was down a full board a game from the year prior, and he averaged 0.3 more assists per game. That guy is one of the 5 or 6 best players in the Big 12? I don't think so. No way. I would have rather had, you could probably give me at least one of the dudes from Baylor in that spot instead. I would have taken Kevin McCullough instead of that.
Yeah.
No, I'm out on Avery Anderson. He's fine. He's a Big 12 starter, but he is not, to me, one of the 6 best players in this conference.
Yeah, I'm not saying these guys are bad at basketball, but not everybody can be first team. And yeah, there's only 5 guys that get to play at a time. Can't have 6.
Exactly.
Got to break the tie somehow, right? That's what we're doing. We're breaking the tie.
Yes, that is. We're doing a service, really.
So for my one gotta go today, yesterday marked the return of something near and dear to our hearts as college football sickos. Tuesday Night Maction. Maction was on TV last night. Maction will be on TV tonight as well. We got some Wednesday Night Maction. So of the 4 true mid-major or non-Power 5 conferences, I'm going to keep the American out of the discussion for the time being.
Okay.
You got the MAC, you've got the Mountain West, you get the Sun Belt Conference, and you've got Conference USA. As an entertainment product, as a football conference, one got to go.
So to me, it's pretty easily Conference USA. The MAC, it has such a weird cult following. Even now that those games are largely on ESPN Plus, you still have the cult of Maction, which watches it every week, myself included. The Sun Belt is I think the Sun Belt right now is the best G5 conference. I would take it even past the American. I think it is better than the Mountain West, which has had its own time in the sun. I think the Sun Belt right now with the programs they have added, that's number 1 in that category.
The last place team in the Sun Belt East beat Notre Dame this year.
Yeah. Which is funny on multiple levels, by the way.
Yeah, it really is.
And yeah, Marshall in recent years has been a very strong program. They almost went undefeated a couple years ago. You remember that?
Yeah.
Was that 18, 19? It was something around there.
The Doc Holliday era.
Yeah, they were very good. And then the Mountain West, is down this year. I think it's actually down quite a bit this year, but it's still got some pretty darn good programs, some consistently good programs and coaches. And there's still a pretty decent brand of football out there. You get a lot of different kinds of offenses, which is a lot of fun. Some spread it out more, some more run heavy. You've got the triple in Colorado Springs at Air Force. Conference USA is just kind of Like, there's not really any major draw of that conference right now. Like,
that is UTSA erasure.
I like UTSA a lot.
North Texas's quarterback is eligible for AARP benefits. Austin Ane.
UTSA is moving to the American, though.
They are.
So they're...
But I'm talking about the here and now.
They're... Yeah, okay, fair enough. Like, I mean, UTEP is... UTEP. They've got history. They have those cool throwback uniforms. That conference is going to add Liberty. Like, I know that's, again, in the future, but, like, There's not really a draw to Conference USA. Like, I think there's draws to the other leagues.
No, I get that. And the only reason I would have suggested the Mountain West is just strictly on a here and now perspective. It's been a rough year.
It has been.
For the Mountain West. Air Force came out of the gate swinging. Now they're 2-3 in conference play. That's pretty gross. Boise State fired their entire offensive staff, and now they look like the team to beat in the Mountain Division, which, what else is new? But the Mountain West does have one thing that Conference USA does not have, and that is the late-night god, Jake Haener, the quarterback at Fresno State, who is back from injury, leading dramatic comeback victories. Again, that warmed my heart to see it as he led that comeback, scored 2 touchdowns in like 20 seconds to win on Saturday night. I forget who they were playing even. Was it Utah State or no?
No. It was, I was watching this.
San Diego State.
Yeah.
San Diego State.
That's not a very good game for most of it.
No, it sure wasn't. There's a lot of bad football in that league. Like Nevada stinks. Colorado State can't score. Hawaii, God love them, not good yet.
Nevada's big bad.
But New
Hawaii,
Mexico,
you get to watch football at 2 a.m.
Yeah, it is true. Yeah, you're not getting odd hours Conference USA football. So yeah, I got Conference USA. I don't know.
Old Dominion after dark.
Find a hook, Conference USA. That's what I'm asking.
With that, we're going to take a time out here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll come back with our Wendy's High School Athletes of the Week. It's time for our Wendy's High School Athletes of the Week here on 580 Sports Talk, and we continue to celebrate state champions again this week. The Washburn Rural Junior Blues, for the 8th time in program history, are state champions in girls volleyball, and I was lucky enough to be joined by Kevin Bordewick, the longtime head coach, the 1,000-win head coach of the Junior Blues this week. So without further ado, let's get to our Wendy's High School Athletes of the Week with Kevin Bordewick.
The Washburn Rural Junior Blues, for the 8th time in school history, are
Thank you, Brendan.
The Washington World Junior Blues. They are. Hey now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. Brendan Dworzynski and Dan Lucero with you. Our echoing problem has been fixed over the air.
You're no longer max headroom in there.
We're figuring out the YouTube streaming and everything on the fly. We've got a lot going on now, so we appreciate you sticking with us through the occasional audio issue, but we've got that figured out. We've got some breaking news from Pete Thamel of ESPN about Big 12 expansion. I will give you, on the other side of the microphone, 50 guesses, and I'm almost certain you will not figure out who we are about to talk about. But this was just reported by Pete Thamel of ESPN. We'll get to the breaking news in just a second. We're going to push NFL trade deadline talk back a little bit. We can get to that at some other point. Also coming up here in this 4 o'clock hour, we will talk to Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. We will also have our What is Wrong with You for today. 2 news stories will go head-to-head against yesterday's winner from Tulsa. Very funny story from yesterday.
Really good story.
The worst Matt Damon lookalike of all time. Well, we've got to get to this breaking news. Your thoughts are welcome on this on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. You can also watch us streaming live on YouTube. Stream is working. 100% full go right now. Audio issues cleared from yesterday, today. It's all good. Sports on 580 WIBW is where you can find us on YouTube. By the way, we are up to 70 subscribers. We're up more than a dozen subscribers in the last 2 days. How about that? Shout out to you guys listening on the other end of our microphones as well. If you haven't subscribed already, go to YouTube, Sports on 580 WIBW. Subscribe, bookmark the page, whatever you need to do. Put it on your bookmarks bar, save it to your desktop, whatever. Make sure you can find us on YouTube and you can watch the live stream along with the show, and you can interact with us in the YouTube comments as well. We've got breaking news, though, from Pete Thamel of ESPN. I shrieked in the studio when I saw this get posted. This is 6 minutes old. This was posted at 4:02 Central Time. But in the words of Pete Thamel of ESPN, quote, Gonzaga's athletic director met in person with the Big 12 commissioner last week as part of broader discussions about the Zags joining the Big 12.
Do you have the rap air horns sound effect?
Again, it might be in there somewhere. Big 12 and Gonzaga. Well, that's not seismic. That is like unfathomable. Further on in this piece, Pete Thamel writes, Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark met with Gonzaga Athletic Director Chris Standiford at the Hyatt in Frisco, Texas, while the Zags were in the Dallas area to play Tennessee in a scrimmage. The move backs up Yormark's promises of the Big 12 to be aggressive and, quote, open for business, and could also end up shifting the landscape of college basketball. Sources indicate that Gonzaga has been exploring its conference options as it has emerged as one of the premier basketball programs in the country. Okay, that line is like 6 years old. But both the Pac-12 and Big East have been engaged with Gonzaga, according to sources, but the extent of those conversations are uncertain. So it is clear to me, based on this writing, this is not happening, so to speak. They're just having discussions.
Nothing is imminent.
But there is a reason to me that this is public now, that it's been talked about with the Big 12, and it's just a footnote that the Big East and the Pac-12 have talked to them. The Pac-12, we know about that conference's reluctance to add anyone that is either a private institution, a small institution, and doesn't meet certain
academic standards.
Yes, and I don't know what Gonzaga's academics are like. I really have no idea.
I think they're pretty good.
I would imagine so. Small Jesuit school in the Pacific Northwest. I would figure it's a pretty good school. They are very small from the Spokane Valley. The Big East, that has kind of been flirted with. I think that's been a lot of fan talk for a long time.
From an ideological sense, Gonzaga fits with the other Big East schools in that the Big East has a lot of Jesuit schools that do not have football programs, or do but don't compete at the highest level of the sport, like Villanova.
Or UConn.
Rude. Jim Moore Jr.'s got them 2 wins from a bowl. You put some respect on UConn's name. But no.
I had to say that before they get to a bowl before Kansas. I had to get that in.
Anyway, That was really funny.
Thank you.
So like Gonzaga's an ideological fit with the Big East, right? Like Gonzaga fits the template of the other schools that are in the Big East Conference. The issue is it is 2 time zones away from any of the schools in the Big East Conference.
I was going to say, you know what their closest road trip would be?
Creighton.
Yeah. Which
is in eastern Nebraska.
You effectively might be traveling to Lawrence, right?
Yeah, at that point, at that stage, if you're willing to listen to the Big East or make overtures to the Big East, you've decided we'll make the money work. We'll make the travel work for basketball, for all of our other sports, for the revenue, the cost. We'll make it work. We want to be big boys in basketball. Gonzaga has done everything you can possibly do as a men's basketball program, short of win a national championship, to gain respect. And I don't know who you talk to, Brendan, but I know it hasn't really all the way worked. There are still people who still think that Gonzaga, no matter how highly they're ranked in the preseason, no matter how many All-Americans or NBA players they churn out, people still don't consider Gonzaga a real threat come March. And some of that is their own fault. They have had some high-profile losses as a high seed. It's true. It's happened.
2 national title appearances that they lost.
Yes. If they'd won any one of those, we're having a very different conversation about how Gonzaga is perceived. And fair or not, that's how it works. You got to win to be considered a winner. But short of winning the last game of the season, nobody wins like Gonzaga does. And they've done a lot of that winning in the West Coast Conference, which it's a fun basketball conference. Like St. Mary's turns out really good teams, and BYU's been a part of it. And like they got some good teams in the West Coast Conference, and they play some fun basketball. They also play Portland a lot and Pepperdine.
University of the Pacific.
Respect to my parents' alma mater, Pepperdine University, roll waves. But they are not exactly what you would call a basketball power. So
and they're, real quick, I'm sorry to cut you off, but they're losing one of the other 2 regularly competitive teams in that league. There's St. Mary's, which is a good program. BYU is coming to the Big 12. So, actually, now that I think about it, their closest trip, if they joined the Big 12, would actually be BYU, which ain't that bad.
No.
They do that all the time anyway.
It's really not. So you get it from Gonzaga's perspective. They want a seat at the big kids table in basketball, and they feel like they've earned it over the last, really, we're going on 20 years of Gonzaga being probably the best non-Power 6 program in that stage. It's Power 6 in basketball because you have the Big East. They're probably the best non-Power 6 program in the last 20 years, with apologies to like Wichita State.
Oh, it's not close.
Yeah, Gonzaga, Gonzaga, as you said, they've played for 2 national championships. I know Butler has, but they got their seat. They're in the Big East. You know, Creighton got their seat. Wichita State made it into the American back when that looked a little bit more desirable than it's about to look with some of their higher profile programs decamping for the Big 12. Gonzaga's the only one that's kind of stayed in their own league because it hasn't made a lot of geographic sense. But now we know that doesn't matter with USC and UCLA about to decamp for the Big 10. So why not? Why not Gonzaga to the Big 12? From the Big 12 perspective, Brett Yormark has said from the beginning, what are we going to be about? How are we going to tell our story? What's going to define the Big 12? One thing that can define the Big 12 is to be the best damn basketball league in the country. You don't think adding Gonzaga to the mix, to a mix that's about to include Houston, recent Final Four team, Cincinnati, historically successful program, BYU, historically successful program, one that already includes the reigning national champions and the national champions from the year before that, and a team that played in the national championship game 3 years before that. I don't think adding Gonzaga to that mix makes this league a hell of a lot better in basketball, because it does. It makes sense. At the same time, it makes no sense because it's Gonzaga and the Big 12 conference. It's a football league. It's a Power 5 football league. None of the other Power 5 football leagues have non-football members. Gonzaga would be the first.
They would be the first. We need to get to a few pieces of information here. So, I want to tell you that as the crow flies from Spokane, Washington to Orlando, Florida, it is 3,751 miles. That is relevant because that is where new Big 12 member UCF is. That is a really freaking long flight. That is a long way to go. Now, Gonzaga, private school, I don't know what they do for flying. I assume they charter. They probably can. I'm sure they've got the money. Big 12 money would certainly make that more helpful to charter flights as well. You could make that happen. You definitely could. Now, for non-basketball sports, this becomes a challenge. Are you adding Gonzaga so that they can travel to West Virginia to play baseball? Like, that is a legitimate problem. I think most of the time we say when we talk about realignment, hey, you can make it work because football and basketball are king, specifically football. Gonzaga doesn't have football, so you're losing out on that. And also, and I don't know if Gonzaga has baseball. I think that they do.
Yes, they do. Shout out to Cleveland Guardians relief pitcher Eli Morgan, a former Gonzaga Bulldog.
Oh, would you happen to know something about that?
Yeah, I have a little background knowledge on Gonzaga baseball.
So does that make the juice worth the squeeze? From a basketball perspective, even with that travel, even with Gonzaga having to make trips to Orlando or West Virginia having to make trips to Spokane, I think that would make a degree of sense. And this is what we were talking about with Brett Yormark, though. This is not just college athletics anymore. This is big-time entertainment at this point. And I think we should note this. This is at the very end of Pete Thamel's piece about this. The last two paragraphs. The notion of Gonzaga potentially joining the Big 12 was brought up by the conference with its television partners in a cursory manner in conversations about the league's new television deal recently, but the potential addition had nothing to do with the final deal. A person familiar with the agreement said, quote, "It was hinted at. It came up in a quiet manner. It's a positive, but not a financial game changer." I'm not really surprised by any of that, but it is significant to note that they consider that a positive. And if you are Fox, if you are ESPN, college basketball Saturday, well, guess what? You can have your ACC and SEC games early in the day. You're going to have Big 12 basketball midday. You can have Pac-12 or more Big 12 in the evening. And then, hey, guess what? You get Texas Tech Gonzaga at 9 o'clock. That's a huge win. Or the same for Fox.
It's the same argument we've been making back when it looked like the Pac-12 might be ripe for the picking, that football in the Big 12 could have all four of the major time slots if they were able to poach an Arizona or a Utah or an Arizona State, or that the Big 10's big draw is now having all of those time windows because they're adding USC and UCLA. Here's the other thing about this. It's so fascinating and maybe a little bit petty. Gonzaga fits better in the Pac-12 geographically, right? Like that's
of course.
That's the no-brainer of no-brainers.
Of course.
If the Pac-12 is looking to not just stabilize but strengthen their athletic offerings, why wouldn't they give the folks in Spokane a call? For this now to be public knowledge that the Big 12 has had discussions with the athletic director at Gonzaga,
and that has been brought up with ESPN and Fox, which is a big deal.
Right. Like this didn't happen yesterday, and this isn't happening without the awareness of the other athletic directors and people in charge in the Big 12. This is another shot across the bow of the Pac-12. This is intentional. This is Brett Yormark saying, hey, we've got a TV deal. Pac-12's still working on theirs. We have stability. We know who we are. We know where we're going. We know what we want to be, and you fit. And that other league, the one that makes more geographic sense for you, they're dragging their feet. We're not dragging our feet around here in the Big 12 conference. We don't drag our feet. That's not what Brett Yormark's Big 12 conference does. We don't drag our feet. We got our TV deal done a year before we had to get it done.
Do you think Bob Bowlesby's okay? Do you think watching all this, he's physically doing okay? Or like, is his heart maybe giving him a little bit of a scare right now? Like, I didn't know you could do this.
Is that allowed?
What? Washington State? Huh?
That's so far away from Ames.
Will people from Washington travel to the T-Mobile Center? Like, that's what Bob Bowlesby is asking himself right now. He can't believe this.
I'm so all in on this. Give me KU Gonzaga at the Kennel every year or every other year.
With Gus Johnson on the call.
Oh, hell yeah. Hook it to my veins.
Like I said the other day when the media news came out, there will be drawbacks to this approach to growing the conference to this level. Like, I got to be honest with you. And this is going to happen, and it's not going to make a lot of people happy. The Big 12 tournament's not always going to be in Kansas City. based on these moves Brett Yormark is making, Big 12 basketball conference is going to be in Vegas. Let's just be honest. If you're expanding that far west, you're going to have it in Vegas. They're going to hold it in Seattle at this rate, or at least Dallas.
Yeah.
You're going to be moving it around. Those are going to be some of the drawbacks to this, is if you want to be a national brand with bigger media deals and different partners and different TV networks and different parts of the country, other things are going to change that we have gotten used to and have come to enjoy for our programs. And I think everybody around here would agree, yeah, the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City is awesome. And it'll be for at least a few more years. That is going to be a drawback, though. It's going to move if you want to keep expanding. I will also add this in here, and this isn't a drawback, just another aside, kind of a side discussion to this. From the Sports Business Journal, earlier today, I believe it was the Sports Business Journal that reported this. The pro rata part of the new media contracts, I know we're getting into real businessy stuff here, but hey, your payout goes up if you add more teams. That's what that essentially says. That is only if you include other Power 5 members currently. So, like, if you add Memphis, that does not change if you're the Big 12. Your payouts do not change. But if you add Arizona, it does change. You know what else changes? Now, all of a sudden, if you want to expand and you want to make this a super conference, maybe not SEC and Big 10 super conference, but you want to be, hey, we're number 3, everyone else is on the outside looking in. You don't need to add Colorado to get an even number now.
No, you don't.
Or hell, you don't need to add Arizona State if you want an even number now.
Yeah, you just go get Arizona and say, yeah, we want to be the best basketball league in the country. Let's go get Arizona.
So you could add 1 or 3 or any number of things. This is incredible business sense by the Big 12 commissioner that we have not seen. And frankly, some of this stuff goes beyond even what we've seen from like Greg Sankey, who you said a week or two ago is the most powerful man in college athletics. And there is an argument for that. This is a big deal to just be talking about it. And I love it. I love the thought about just talking about this. KU versus Gonzaga and not as a non-conference once in a while thing. Like KU at the Kennel, like you said.
Friend of the program, Shahan Jayaraja, tweeted out about 10 minutes ago, if Gonzaga were to join the Big 12 would have the top 4 teams from the end of season Ken Pom rankings last year.
That's crazy, man. But I love it. Like, we said that over the summer. We talked about that last year on the show when we had the other breaking news about OU and Texas. We've been talking about this for a long time. The Big 12 needs to be strong in its brand. And what would be, based on the members that they have, that they are adding, what would be that best brand to steer into?
Basketball.
Be the best league in basketball.
And be the most fun league in football.
And be fun in football.
Be the unpredictable league in football. Be the anything can happen. You have to watch all of our big games on a week in, week out basis. Not just one of them, all of them, to keep track of the league race, which is what we're seeing unfold this year.
I was going to say, is that what the Big 12 is in football this year?
Yes.
To a T. Is it what they will be in basketball this year? Absolutely. And it's probably not going to be close.
And they're already getting better with Houston joining the conference, with Cincinnati joining the conference, with BYU joining the conference. They're already in a better spot in basketball when Oklahoma and Texas leave. Because for all that Oklahoma and Texas bring you as recognizable football brand names, they doing a lot of winning on the hardwood? Not really. No. I mean, they only got to the second round when Kevin Durant was at Texas. Like, that's not a basketball program, all due respect to Chris Beard, that's doing a whole lot of meaningful winning in their recent and overall history. And it's been a while since Oklahoma was considered a national power. I know they went to a couple Final Fours when Lon Kruger had it humming there for a few years, but that's not like, is that a program right now that's in the spot that Houston is? I don't think it is.
No.
So they're already getting better at basketball. Then you bring Gonzaga in. Theoretically, you've got 13 teams. You can play an 18-game league schedule. You play everybody once. You play 6 of the other 12 teams home and home.
This is awesome. I love that this is even a talking point. And again,
and it's so intentional because the message
exactly.
The message that it sends is we are not just stable. We are not just getting our media rights deal done a year before we have to, before the Pac-12 gets theirs done, even though they beat us to the negotiating table by a solid month. We're so stable that we're going into Pac-12's the Pac-12's geographic blueprint, and we're going to make some deals there. We're going to make some inroads there.
We're going to ask Tim Fitzgerald about this coming up in just about 10 minutes. He's going to join us from GoPowerCat.com for our Wildcat wrap-up. We will ask him about this. We've obviously got a ton of K-State to get to as well. This is massive, man. Like, this could have truly huge ramifications for all of college basketball. Good for the Big 12 and good for Brett Yormark.
What odds would you put on Gonzaga joining the Big 12 right now? That's entirely theoretical. You can't bet on it yet, but you can bet on lots of other things. And now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's free bets back. If your first bet doesn't win, just sign up with my promo code Lucero. You want to bet futures? You want to bet college basketball games when the season tips off next week? You want to do same-game parlays for chances at bigger payouts? You can do it all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So sign up today with my promo code Lucero for your no-sweat first bet. That's promo code Lucero. Make every moment more this season with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 and present in Kansas. First online real money wager only. Refund issues non-withdrawable free bets. It expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
We'll take a quick break. Tim Fitzgerald will join us in just under 10 minutes. But after this, we've got What Is Wrong With You coming up on 580 Sports Talk. What the hell is right? It is time for What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. Two new stories going head-to-head today. Our reigning champion, though, who won yesterday, the folks at the AT&T store in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Father and son duo The son broke in, stole a bunch of phones and chargers, about $1,000 worth of phones. And then he came back to the store because he left a phone behind. His own.
Also claimed he was Matt Damon.
Yeah, told the police he was Matt Damon. In that vein, my story is very similar today, incredibly.
Is that so? Well, with that, let's have you go first today, Dan.
We're going to Middlesbrough in the United Kingdom, in England, where a drunken Teessider claimed to be Hollywood film character Jason Bourne, played, of course, by Matt Damon.
Oh, my God.
Before stripping off his top and swearing at police officers. I did not make the connection between yesterday's story and my story today until literally just now.
Is Matt Damon having a moment or something? Like, is he resurging in popularity for some reason? I mean, he's always been famous and popular, but I mean, like, is something coming out that's making him the hot guy to imitate?
I have no idea, but if you can see the picture, Brendan, of 42-year-old Paul Stevens of Middlesbrough's Park Road North, he doesn't exactly favor Matt Damon.
No.
Not even a little bit.
He looks like a third-tier soccer coach that's fallen on some hard times.
Yeah, he looks like he's the manager of Grimsby Town or something.
This is the guy that Wrexham AFC fired when Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds took over.
Paul Stevens admitted a charge of being drunk and disorderly when he appeared before Teesside Magistrates Court. The court heard that 42-year-old Stevens had been drinking in Durham City on September 10th when officers were alerted to reports of a drunken man staggering in the road around 4:15 p.m.
Oh, my.
Officers approached to speak to him, but he started to swear at them and tell them he was Jason Bourne. Paul Doney, prosecuting, said an officer tried to engage with Stevens and explain why he wanted to talk to him, but the defendant started to swear, telling him his name was Jason Bourne. He said the shouting and swearing continued. The defendant then took his top off and started talking about his tattoos. Mr. Doney said the defendant threw his jacket over a barrier and told the officers to fetch it. He then climbed over the barrier himself. The prosecutor said the shouting and swearing continued in front of members of the public, and Stevens was arrested. He said the defendant has a lengthy record of previous convictions.
What other action heroes has he claimed to be?
I'm Jason Bourne, I am. That was terrible.
It's all right. My German yesterday was really bad, so it's all right. We're even now. Yeah, this guy looks nothing like Matt Damon.
I'm bloody Jason Bourne. That's really, really awful. I'm going to spare you guys any more of me doing a British accent. Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Had he just recently watched The Bourne Identity?
Matt Damon being like this heavy in the cultural zeitgeist is not something I was totally prepared for.
No, not at all. That's really funny. My story for today takes us to Disney World, where someone on the Disney Parks Reddit recently, 3 days ago, in fact, wanted to vent about their frustration from an experience at Epcot. So they had gone into the park, see Hanson perform. I didn't know Hanson was performing at Disney World.
Yeah, Hanson's still out there. They got a lot of kids to feed.
Bopping around.
I think like between them, they got mad kids. Like I don't.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not up on my Hanson current events. Well, this individual who drives a Mitsubishi, they were inside, or I'm sorry, is this looked like a Mitsubishi, might be something else actually. No, it's a Nissan. I'm sorry, it's a Nissan. Well, they were inside Epcot. While they were inside, someone crashed into their car and totally destroyed the front of the car, knocked some pieces off, totally ripped the front bumper off. The grill on the front of the car was ripped off. But instead of leaving their phone number, instead of leaving their name, they just left a note that said sorry and a $100 bill. And that's it.
Nah, man.
That is it.
Man. No.
The poster filed a report with the Florida Highway Patrol, but they didn't send anybody out because the vehicle was not either occupied or on private property. They said they have an investigator who may contact them, but they will probably only end up seeing the footage if a case ends up being pursued.
No, like the front bumper is completely off. That's a Nissan, by the way.
Yes, it is a Nissan. My bad. I saw a little piece of the inside that looked like a three-prong.
Yeah, that does look like the old Mitsubishi, but no, that's a Nissan. Yeah, like the grill is gone. There's damage to the headlight. The front bumper is off the car.
Totally ripped off.
Sorry, $100 is not going to cover that.
Nope. Sorry.
No.
Here's a hundo.
No, man. Oh, man. I'd be so upset. By the way, please do not ask me where I got this information from, but I confirmed it with Wikipedia. Isaac Hansen has 3 children. Zach Hansen has 5 children. Taylor Hansen has 7 children.
A cool 15 by the 3 of them.
5 per member.
Yeah, it's true. That
Yeah,
evens out very nicely.
Zach is the median member.
Wow. That's a lot of children for a 3-person family. How did you know that?
I don't know.
Who you got for today's What Is Wrong With You before we get to Fitz?
I am going to go. Oh, man. This one makes me really mad. You leave $100 bill. You rip the front end of somebody's car off. Sorry, LOL.
I think this one wins. $100. I'm freaking out. I'm going to destroy the rest of my car in rage after this. Unbelievable. So I've got that one for today.
Yeah, me too. But I don't think it beats our AT&T cell phone robbers.
You can't leave your own phone, man.
They left their own. They came back for it. Hey,
don't
left the phone here. When did you leave the phone here? I just did. No follow-up
earlier.
Hey, listen, do you have it or not?
That is our winner for today in What Is Wrong With You. With that, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. Tim Fitzgerald will join us for the Wildcat wrap-up here on 580 Sports Talk.
What a great day to be a Wildcat.
It's a big Kansas State victory.
It's always a big Kansas State victory when we get to talk to Tim Fitzgerald here on 580 Sports Talk, publisher of GoPowerCat.com. Go check him out on Twitter at Life of Fitz. And, of course, go ahead to GoPowerCat.com. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network for all the best coverage of all things K-State. What's going on, Fitz? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. We'll get to all the K-State goings on here in just a moment. Basketball played last night, looked pretty darn good in exhibition play. Obviously, a huge game coming up this weekend for K-State football. But I've got to ask you, Fitz, I assume you've seen the report from Pete Thamel of ESPN that the Big 12 has at least had discussions with Gonzaga and its athletic director about potentially at some point moving over to the Big 12. When you first saw this news break, what was your initial reaction?
Huh? I mean, exactly. I'm like, what? I'm not into any non-football members. If football is what's driving this money thing, why bring in anyone if it's not football? Now, the one thing I pitched to my guys, the one thing that makes it palatable to me is if somehow Notre Dame's coming in for everything except football, then you need someone to balance them out. Other than that, one of the theories Zach Carlson on my staff is pitching is it's a message to the Pac-12 schools. Look, we're going to move on if you don't want to join, and maybe try to get them to go ahead and get into action here if they're interested in the Big 12. I don't know. I don't understand it, and I don't think there's a whole lot of meat to this report.
So there is an interesting point about how likely is it that we could see Gonzaga on the move. The thing that stood out to me, Fitz, is the fact that Brett Yormark, whether or not this happens, he was not kidding about being open for business and exhausting all possible options because I joked to Dan earlier. I mean, is Bob Bowlesby okay seeing all this news? Like, do you think his heart is doing okay seeing a commissioner go out and make bold claims, even if they might not be super realistic?
Yeah, it's so opposite of how he conducted business. And it's exactly what the conference needed. And I'm going to believe that Brett Yormark's reached out to Gonzaga, as he's probably done to a number of other schools, just to gauge interest. So I just find it curious, and it does feel like such an oddball report that it feels like there's got to be motives to why this got out.
It is certainly interesting. It took me by surprise right at the top of the 4 o'clock hour. I'll tell you that much. We'll obviously hear more about this in the coming weeks, maybe months, maybe even years at this point. But we do have plenty to get to K-State related. It is our Azura Credit Union Wildcat wrap up here on 580 Sports Talk as we're talking to Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. We'll get to football here momentarily because obviously a massive game for the Cats coming up against Texas this weekend. But I do want to ask you, Fitz, about last night's exhibition game in the first ever appearance for the Tang Gang on the court at Bramlage Coliseum. What did you think of what you saw out of K-State last night?
They're much more athletic, and we've been saying that. They're long. They're going to be fun. They're going to, kind of be unpredictable. They're going to, blow some games just because they're a group of guys that haven't played very often together. And some of these players are coming where they didn't have big roles at their previous school, but boy, you can immediately see that there's a reason why they picked them up, like Cam Carter. David Gasson is another guy that I really like who didn't play much at his previous school. So I think it filled K-Staters with hope that at least they're going to be more competitive and more palatable to watch. And it got that bad. It became so painful just to watch K-State basketball because every game was a struggle, that maybe this group will be a little bit more enjoyable to watch, even if they can't quite pull out a victory.
Our guest is Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. He joins us every Wednesday at this time for the Azura Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-Up here on 580 Sports Talk. Check Tim out on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Fitz, going back to last Saturday, Kansas State beats Oklahoma State 48-0. You and I had a chance to catch up at halftime of that game. We're both kind of in disbelief about what we were seeing. Now that you've had a little time to process and absorb what that was on Saturday, given the stakes, given the quality of opponent, is it overreacting? Is it being a prisoner of the moment still all these days later to consider that an all-time K-State victory?
It's up there. I mean, it's just up there in shock value and, pure achievement in terms of how well they played. And I think what changes the equation for the rest of the year is we've now seen it. We now know that this team can play at a much higher level, maybe than what we even expected. And I'm not sure it was all Will Howard. Will Howard didn't pitch a defensive shutout. He certainly was very good and aggressive in the passing game, which is something they've needed. But boy, I didn't imagine they had that full gear. And keep in mind that they missed on plays. They had other plays that could have been scores. And as I go back and watch the Oklahoma State-Texas game, I think Oklahoma State played in a very similar fashion against Texas. It's just Texas didn't rout them, and they couldn't stop them as often. I wasn't impressed as I went back and watched Oklahoma State. So I'm intrigued by it. We don't know what it really means this weekend, but at least the team knows that they've got a high gear that I don't think anyone else in the Big 12 can match.
Will Howard was 21 of 37 passing. You mentioned he left some plays out there. He's still kind of got to dial his arm in a little bit because there are times he gets a little bit overamped on some throws, it looks like, but certainly was tremendous, had the 4 touchdown passes, made some terrific throws, and appears to have the full faith and confidence of his coaching staff and of the rest of his teammates. It did, though, look for all the world like Adrian Martinez was going to play. A little bit of bait and switch on the part of K-State there on that Saturday. Chris Kleiman made it clear after the game that they'd made that call. They were going to go with Will Howard. Moving forward, coming into this Texas game, what does the quarterback picture look like? Do they have to stay with Will Howard even if Adrian Martinez is healthy? Or do you expect they'll make the switch back to the starter once he can prove health-wise that he's able to do all the things Kansas State wants to see him do?
Yeah, if Adrian Martinez is good enough to go, I mean, close to 100%, he's going to go. He's going to be the starter. I don't see Chris Kleiman giving that job away. Now, does this bring up the possibility that if they have a couple possessions where things don't look great, he might say, okay, well, go give us a spark? I'm not sure, and I'm not sure that would work, but this is a big decision. And he made the right decision last week, obviously, to go with Will Howard. And if Adrian isn't 100%, if he's not able to provide that running spark, which is his niche in this offense, and it's honestly something that's given Texas problems. Mobile quarterbacks have been a problem for Texas. So he seems to fit this game plan maybe a little bit more, but if he's not ready to execute that game plan, you got to go with Will Howard. And you got to just kind of give up on the red shirt unless it presents itself as a possibility. For example, you start Adrian, he plays incredibly well, you win the game, you go to Baylor, you win the game, and then you can start talking about maybe we can keep Will Howard to 4 games or fewer this year and preserve the red shirt.
Which aspect of either quarterback's game is better? Because we've seen Adrian Martinez, obviously, the signature win against Oklahoma, he was tremendous running the football. And Will Howard threw the ball really against TCU, but especially against Oklahoma State, as well as anybody has thrown it wearing a K-State uniform all year. What element is better? Is it Will Howard's legs or Adrian Martinez's arm that is better? So I guess which one is the more well-rounded quarterback for what the offense wants to do?
Well, that's a good question. And I don't know if they've really opted to run the ball with Will, so I'm not sure we've gotten much of a fair glance at that other than quarterback sneaks. They haven't needed to do it. I think Adrian can be a better passer than Will can be a better runner. They've got to get Adrian past this, over protection of making the mistake. Go ahead and put the ball into a tight spot. He's done it a few times this year, but then you put Will Howard in the game, and he's like, oh, the heck with this. I'm throwing this. I'm throwing that. He's just throwing it all over. And honestly, he's gotten lucky on some. He probably should have had some picks and hasn't. But part of that is, too, he's putting the ball in a position for his receivers to compete for the ball, and they've had to break some passes up. I think Adrian is the more rounded quarterback. He's certainly the more experienced quarterback. And if you need your quarterback to get out there and run around a little bit, he's probably more your guy.
Obviously, the defense coming off of the shutout against Oklahoma State. Which aspect of the defense is most important to you going into this matchup with Texas?
The ability of Felix Anudike-Uzomah and the other guys along the front, whether it's 3 or 4 men front, to get pressure on quarterbacks without committing too many resources to it. So if they can continue to get pressure on the quarterback without a bunch of blitzes that might expose you in other ways, that's a huge advantage. And they're going up against a really talented but extremely young offensive line for Texas that still is learning. And honestly, I don't know that they've gone up against a guy quite like Felix. So this is going to be the area of the game to keep an eye on. Can Kansas State get a lot of pressure on Ewers, the Texas quarterback, and make him uncomfortable and maybe cause some turnovers simply by bringing 3 or maybe 4 guys? And if they can do that, they're going to win.
Talking to Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. It's the Azura Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up here on 580 Sports Talk. Follow Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. And, of course, GoPowerCat.com. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Best place for all things K-State athletics coverage. Fitz, why do you think the spread in this game is favoring Texas by multiple points?
No idea. I'm not doubting the wisdom of Vegas. We've seen it. But let's see, Texas was favored at Oklahoma State and lost. Oklahoma State was an underdog to K-State, but it was a close line, and they got blown out. So naturally, the team that beat Texas and then got blown out would be the underdog against Texas. It doesn't make any sense to me, but it's probably how these two teams match up. And I think a lot of people, we talked about overreaction to what K-State did last week. I think we're seeing an overreaction to what Texas has done in this series. Yeah, they won 5 in a row. I get that. But the series is 10-8 in their favor. It's not like they're dominating the series. They've had a little run here. And look, if you really are familiar with what happened last year down in Austin, it was a horrendous offensive game plan and performance that led to a change at offensive coordinator. And the year before that, when the Texas running backs went wild on K-State should have never played that game. But Chris Kleiman wanted to get guys experience during the pandemic season. He didn't really have enough healthy bodies. You remember, I think Elijah Sullivan was trying to play safety in that game, and they got smoked. Look, you can't read anything into either one of those games other than the fact that Texas did win, but there were some alternate problems going on for K-State. They just weren't the same team they are right now.
All right, Fitz, we got 2 more quick ones for you before we let you go. Number 1, Harley Day, yay or nay?
Yay, but a hesitant yay. I haven't done this research because it involves research. K-State doesn't win a lot of Harley Days. They're fun, they're cool, they're loud, but they don't win them. So that's a little worrisome.
I can understand that. I was just reading the other day because I never knew where it came from. I mean, it's a very organic thing. I did not go to K-State, so I didn't know where its history lies.
It's going to be Harley Night on Saturday, too,
true.
which maybe adds a little juice to it.
So, okay, I had to know, though, Fitz, someone who's been around the program for so long, I had to know what your inside thought was. All right, last thing for you. Prediction, K-State versus Texas. Do the Cats pick up yet another win over the Longhorns?
Yeah, they do. I think they're the better team, and they're going to win this game after watching Texas a little bit. They're so talented, but I'm just not enamored with how they're put together. And I hope, this is your little Harley Day trivia here, a little history. I hope they have someone that goes around the stadium. Harley Day used to be Harley Day. People would show up, and you could just ride into the stadium. And they had to start restricting it to people paying a fee to go do it because one glorious woman riding on the back of the hog with her man went the entire lap at KSU Stadium, flipping off the crowd. It was a beautiful moment in sports. It was just the definition of you invite Harley people to Harley Day, and you get that. We need a little that back in Harley Day.
Yeah, back when freedom was really free, back when men were men. That's what we need.
Women were mean.
Yeah. Tim Fitzgerald is the publisher of GoPowerCat.com. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can follow him on Twitter as well at Life of Fitz, and he joins us every single Wednesday for the Azura Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up. As always, Fitz, we appreciate the time. Enjoy the football game on Saturday and the K-State basketball opener on Monday night as well.
It's the overlap. We all love the overlap.
Who doesn't love crossover season? Appreciate it, Fitz. Thanks so much.
You bet.
That is Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. Fitz, very kind to us today because I totally forgot to text him to make sure that we were all good for our regular segment until 4:20 today. I thought, oh my God, I forgot to text Fitz. But we're all good. Very reliable, Tim Fitzgerald. So we really do appreciate that. With that, we are going to wrap up this 4 o'clock hour. One more hour to come here on 580 Sports Talk today. Speaking of K-State, we're going to get some more thoughts from Dan on what he saw last night from K-State hoops against Washburn. Some thoughts on K-State. We'll get some Washburn thoughts as well. Plus, we've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines. A lot to get to. We'll recap the Big 12 Gonzaga news, huge news from one NFL team. All that is coming up next hour here on 580 Sports Talk. now, 1 hour to go on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here on this Wednesday, November 2nd. Happy anniversary of the Chicago Cubs snapping their 108-year World Series drought and winning the 2016 World Series. People forget about that. Thank you so much, though, on a serious note, for joining us today. Been a very fun and busy show. If you've missed any of it, you can go check out the podcast version of the show at our website with our new web address, folks. Don't forget about that with all the other fun stuff we're doing online these days. 580wibw.com. You can still go to wibwnewsnow.com, but that's a lot of letters to type out. It's going to reroute you anyway. It may take some extra time to load. Make it easy on yourself. We've done the work for you. 580wibw.com. Very happy to have a new address, much easier to find. All the same content as normal. Just a little bit easier to get there from now on. Also, of course, if you want to go back and watch any of the live stream back, you can do that on YouTube. Head to YouTube, look up Sports on 580 WIBW, subscribe to our channel. We've got not just the live shows there. Dan and Jake did their recap from Washburn at K-State exhibition basketball last night. That's up there. Plenty of Washburn stuff from Jake. All the other games we go to, K-State, KU, we've got recaps there. After Chiefs games, we've got our live Chiefs recap post-game show, whether it's Dan and I, Jake and I, Fulton and I, Dan and Jake, Dan and Fulton, whatever the combinations are. Two of us recap every single Chiefs game on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook as well. So head to YouTube, Sports on 580 WIBW, subscribe, bookmark it, favorite it, whatever it takes. Just make sure you are checking us out on our YouTube channel. And shout out to all y'all who have indeed subscribed over the last couple of days. We have gone up now another 2 subscribers just in the last hour. How about that?
We are delighted and flattered that so many of you want to look at us while we say words. It is already flattering, and we appreciate it greatly that you want to hear us say words. But the fact that you want a visual experience of 580 Sports Talk, that really speaks volumes.
You do occasionally get some really good, unique, one place only kind of content. Like today, when we were having an issue with an echo every time I was talking for a couple seconds at the end of the 3 o'clock hour, and you saw Dan's face. It was very funny. Yesterday, you saw me bury my head in the control board when I accidentally made a comment about Grady Dick and Michael Swain picking him as a top 3 scorer for KU this year, and burying my head in my hands and into the control board. You get a lot of good stuff. Whether you're listening on the radio, you're listening only online via our website, 580wibw.com, or you're checking us out on the YouTube.
Now, do you think I need better lighting? Like, I think we're pretty well lit in the studio, and
I'm always well lit.
I'm sure it looks weird right now because I'm looking at my when I look at my screen that has like the video preview on it to make sure like everything's going according to plan. It means I'm looking away from the camera, so I feel it looks really odd to people who might be listening
kind of
along.
In profile.
Yeah, it has me in profile right now as I'm looking at my computer screen. But yeah, if am I well lit? I'm washing out Maxie the Miner a little bit. My hat of the day is a vintage Denver Nuggets cap. It's got the old Maxie the Miner logo. That's Maxie. There he is.
Yeah, get him right in there. Get him into the camera.
Yeah, lean into the camera a little bit. The light though is kind of washing him out a little bit. Maybe I need a little more. Maybe invest in some ring lights or something like that.
Yeah, we do have in our studio some classic fluorescent.
Right.
I don't know what exactly the lines. They're just lines of fluorescent light. It gets a little hot in my half of the studio. Like every day it gets sweltering hot in here. I think your light's your light's fine in your half of the studio.
Okay.
Though.
Yeah, that's good to know.
And if you want to see for yourself, go check us out on YouTube. Sports on 580 WIBW. By the way, since I gave my update yesterday, no fun t-shirt for me today, just a plain purple t-shirt. But I've got my old KU, where's my camera? My old KU like audio levels hat. Big fan of this I found on clearance in the KU bookstore circa 2013.
I thought it was the Denver Nuggets hat. Like it kind of looks like the old Nuggets logo from the 80s, the old Skyline logo, Rainbow Skyline. I am wearing a fun shirt today. It's a Yale. It's Handsome Dan, the Bulldog. It has my name on it.
If I ever find a college logo named Brendan, I will make sure to get that logo.
But again, a big shout out to Home Field Apparel, who's going to get a lot of free advertising from our YouTube stream.
We own so many Home Field shirts between the two of us.
Preposterous.
Like nearly 40.
My wife pleading with me to stop.
Coming up here in this 5 o'clock hour of the show, if you are listening or watching on the YouTube, we'll get to our 5-minute sports talk headlines here in just a moment. We'll also get Dan's thoughts on K-State versus Washburn from last night, as I mentioned. Plus, the college football playoff rankings. They came out last night. Were they fair to the Big 12? And what's our top 5 in college football? And is it top 5 teams? Top 5 most fun teams? Top 5 worst teams? We'll tell you. It'll be our top whatever. That's coming up later on this hour. We'd love for you to get involved as well. You can, of course, chime in on the Big O Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is that text line number. Also, if you're watching on the YouTube, you can comment as well. We can see all those comments, and we appreciate you chiming in. Our guy Michael on the YouTube comments, in fact, chiming in saying he's a Purdue fan who listens every day. Michael, thank you so much. Boiler up. Spoiler makers. Who do the Spoiler makers play this week?
I do not know.
I have no idea either, but I'm going to look it up so that we can root for. Oh, man, they're playing Iowa. Oh, man. That might get a little gross, but we're rooting for Purdue. I will root for Purdue harder than I ever have rooted for Purdue before.
Good
Michael, thank you.
Good friend of mine went to Purdue. I had a really cool student section basketball t-shirt.
Nice.
The Paint Crew, they're called.
Yeah.
Because Matt Painter.
Yeah.
It's long been lost, unfortunately, but it was a really cool shirt.
That's a hard place to play. That is a sneaky, very hard place to play in basketball. What's
West Lafayette?
No, I know West the arena.
I don't.
I've been to West Lafayette.
Mackey something.
Yeah, Mackey Arena. Yeah. Yes, terrifying mascot as well. Terrifying mascot. All right, let's get to our 5-minute sports talk headlines. We've got a lot of them to get to today. Some really big ones. One, we led the show off with this today. It was breaking news this morning. KU basketball has suspended head coach Bill Self plus lead assistant Kurtis Townsend for the first 4 games of the regular season, a self-imposed sanction, which has been part of the fallout from the FBI investigation into college basketball going all the way back to 2017. Do you know how different the world was in 2017 compared to where we are now in 2022?
In so many ways.
This is so long. And it just won't end. I remember Big 12 Media Days in 2018 when the initial wave of punishments came out, leaving Big 12 Media Day in Kansas City and being so smug as I walked to my car and thinking, KU was defrauded. KU's the victims. And I'm going to milk this for so long. Little did I know that so long would be another 4 years. We've had multiple presidential administrations. We've been through the worst part of a pandemic, a once-in-a-lifetime event, and we're still dealing with this. It just won't end. But KU is trying, as Douglas Girard, the chancellor of the University of Kansas, said, trying to bring this closer to a resolution of the entire process. So again, we'll recap what the self-imposed sanctions are for Kansas. Bill Self and Kurtis Townsend, 4-game suspension for the first 4 games of the season. As you mentioned earlier, that means Omaha, North Dakota State, Duke at the Champions Classic in Indianapolis, and then Southern Utah as well on November 18th. Those 2 will not be involved. Norm Roberts will take over head coaching duties for those 4 games. Jeremy Case, congrats. You're now a lead assistant for 4 games. Nice little boost for him. Additionally, a bunch of recruiting restrictions. We knew about no off-season recruiting activities for those 2 from April through July. We heard about that when that news broke back in July, early August. A reduction of official recruiting visits during this academic year and next. So those are the recruiting visits that KU is allowed to pay for, is allowed to foot the bill for. No official recruiting visits for late night in the fog. We had heard about that as well. So everyone who went had to go via their own dime on the recruiting side of things. A reduction of 3 total scholarships in men's basketball distributed over the next 3 seasons, as well as a 6-week ban on recruiting communications and unofficial visits during the 22-23 academic year. Whether this is actually going to fix things, I don't know. You throw your hands up and shrug because it's impossible to know. I'm hopeful, and I'm saying this not just because I have like you mentioned earlier, I'm a KU alumnus. I've been a fan of KU for a long time. You obviously know, if you've listened to the show for a whole 18 seconds, whereby college sports allegiances lie. I've got a bias toward KU, but I'm hopeful that we can just move on. Like, I'm sick of talking about this. We have to, because it's big news. It's important. And now KU is going to lose Bill Self for 4 games. That's a big deal. But I just want to move on from this. So I'm hopeful that this can bring us a little bit closer, finally, to an IARP resolution for Kansas.
And this does feel like Kansas saying the same thing. We're just ready to put this behind us and move on. And again, like you pointed out when we talked about at the very top of the show, a lot easier to do that when you are coming off of a national championship. To address a couple of thoughts from the Big O Tires text line, which you are always invited and encouraged to be part of, 785-272-9429. At first, from the 785, we have a suggestion to bring down the banner, we presume, whichever banner.
I assume that's the 2018 Final Four.
And also put them behind bars. So
I'm going to guess. Our 785 texters a K-State fan. It is tongue-in-cheek. They sent us a winking emoji, too. On a serious note, though, I do think there are some people who will not rest.
No.
Until that happens. And one of those people is Bruce Weber.
Yes. Is this going to be good enough for Bruce Weber to finally decide to go see a barber? Like, will this be a satisfying enough denouement for Bruce to say, all right, I'm tired of looking like a founding father. I'm going to go get my hair cut.
We will find out, because Bruce Weber is going to be on TV with the Big Ten Network this year.
Oh,
so we're going to find out.
Wonder what game they're going to give him for his first game.
That's a great. I mean, it's going to be, who's Nebraska playing in their non-conference opener?
You think they're going to give him a lot of Illinois games?
I'm wondering about that. I imagine there's a little bad blood. Well, not bad blood.
Yeah, nobody dislikes Bruce Weber, like, personally. You grow tired of his style of basketball.
It is truly crazy, though, how similar K-State at the end of the Weber era and Illinois at the end of the Weber era was. Now, K-State got the worst of it. Illinois never quite bottomed out like that. But I grew up there. I grew up a fan of Illinois. My parents went there. I loved Illinois basketball as a kid. It was a lot of, wow, we won a ton. Conference titles. And then, wow, our recruiting has completely dried up, to, wow, we're not winning at all. And we're kind of sick of the excuses a little bit. And then you move on, and he went to K-State, won a lot. Recruiting dried up. A lot of excuses. That's where we are now.
We also have a text from 785 that asks, who the hell is Norm Roberts?
That is hilarious.
I did. I kind of chuckled. I had to cut my mic and chuckle when I saw that one flash across the Big O Tires text line.
Norm's been at KU for a long time now.
He has. Previously was the head coach at St. John's, not to be confused with Norm Stewart. I wonder if anybody has made that distinction before, or if it was just me that when I heard I saw assistant coach Norm Roberts, first time I really started, covering KU basketball, digging in. Assistant coach Norm Roberts, I had a brief flash where I thought, the old guy from a zoo?
Is he alive?
Norm Stewart?
I don't know if Norm Stewart's alive. This might be breaking news to me.
No, Norm's still kicking.
Oh, all right. Well, nice for him.
Yeah, Norm Stewart's still around, 87 years old.
I can't imagine he's been across the state lines, or at least to Lawrence, since he retired.
Probably not.
He was always one of those, I will not spend my money in Kansas guys. Which maybe he likes to gamble on games. That's unfortunate. I don't know if he does, but that would be unfortunate. Norm Roberts spent 1 year with KU back in 03-04, left, I believe, to go coach at St. John's, and then came back, and he's been with KU since 2012.
Moving on our Big O Tires text line, but our Blue Dot of Kansas headlines.
The texter says, sit down, Norm. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know the vibes.
On the Blue Dot of Kansas headlines, I have 2 stories here. Maybe they're a little bit related. You can tell me. First, from earlier this morning, Washington Commanders co-owners Dan and Tanya Snyder announced they have hired BOFA Securities. That's Bank of America Securities.
What's BOFA?
Bank of America.
Okay.
B of A Securities to explore potential transactions involving the team.
Do you think Dan Snyder's ever been gotten with a BOFA joke?
100%. 1,000% somebody's gotten him with that. A statement from the team did not specify what those transactions might be, whether it was the sale of the team or if they were pursuing minority investors. A Commander spokesperson said the team was exploring all options, and in a statement said, quote, the Snyders remain committed to the team, all its employees, and its countless fans to putting the best product on the field and continuing the work to set the gold standard for workplaces in the NFL. This is where Maury Povich would say the lie detector test determined that was a lie. Here's headline number 2. Tell me if you think it's related. The U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Virginia Virginia has opened a criminal investigation into allegations that the Washington Commanders engaged in financial improprieties. This just broke within the last half an hour. Don Van Natta of ESPN is on this. The sources said prosecutors are focused on several areas and that the inquiry was triggered by a letter the House Committee on Oversight and Reform sent to the Federal Trade Commission and several attorneys general in April that alleged deceptive business practices. Attorneys general in Virginia and Washington, D.C. are also investigating allegations of financial impropriety. Commanders team spokeswoman Jean Medina did not immediately comment, but provided a statement from attorney John Brownlee of Holland and Knight, who represents the Commanders. The statement said, "It is not surprising that ESPN is publishing more falsehoods based solely on anonymous sources given today's announcement. We are confident that after these agents have had a chance to review the documents and complete their work, they will come to the same conclusion as the team's internal review, that these allegations are simply untrue." What a mess.
Jeff Bezos is going to own this team by next Thursday. What a complete cluster of a team. First things first, as Tone Loc would say, funky Gene Medina. More importantly, I am not surprised at all that this news broke within the last hour about the financial improprieties. We said it before. When we heard months ago that, hey, some of the owners are wondering if the Washington Commanders football team maybe didn't pay their fair share toward the league and revenue sharing, you can run a team terribly. You can have a garbage dump stadium. You can send your cheerleaders to South America and steal their passports and potentially be trafficking them. You can have the worst workplace of all time. They sleep. They're going to turn a blind eye.
Yeah.
You start messing with other billionaires' monies, real talk. It is over for you, my friend. You are toast.
Yeah, that's when that's why it really got ramped up. People really started getting annoyed when the report came out about them perhaps skimming a little bit off the top of their ticket revenue and not falsely reporting ticket revenue that would have otherwise gone to like the visiting teams in these games. Yeah, then you're messing with the other owners' money.
It's one thing to mess with Jim Irsay, who has enough personal demons. He doesn't feel like he has anything to lose. It's another thing to mess with the feds. That usually doesn't end well.
So here are some details here. One former employee of the Commanders testified before Congress saying the team had two separate financial books, one with underreported ticket revenue that went to the NFL and then the actual numbers. According to testimony, Snyder was aware of the numbers shared with the league while also being privy to the actual data. The House Committee said in its letter to the FTC it found evidence of deceptive business practices over the span of more than a decade, including withholding ticket revenue from visiting teams and refundable deposits from fans. According to other testimony, financial misconduct included making it intentionally difficult for season ticket holders to recoup refundable deposit money and shifting money from ticket sales for NFL games to other events at FedEx Field as a way of hiding the money from the league. They're crooks.
Criminals. Criminal activity all the way through. We do have a text here from the 913 that says, deceptive practices, we provide quality football. Yep.
Right. We are a competitive National Football League franchise. That has been a lie for many, many years. When was the last time Washington was really good? Like, really good. You got to go back to, like, the mid-2000s?
Really good? I don't know. Were those Santana Moss teams even that good?
Probably not.
I mean, I remember Jason Campbell and Santana Moss.
Like I remember when they brought Joe Gibbs back, which seems like a fever dream, but then you go look up and then, like, that really happened. Like, he was doing his race car thing for, like, a decade, and they brought him out of retirement. And he got them to the playoffs a couple of times. Like, this was when I was in college. I think they made the playoffs in 2006. The year Sean Taylor was killed, they had a late season rally to make the playoffs. They lost to the Seahawks that year in the playoffs. Robert Griffin's one year. That was a pretty nice team when RG3 looked like the truth. And then his knee buckled in that playoff game also against the Seahawks.
But even then, they only made the playoffs that one year. From 2008, which was the first year post Gibbs. That was Jim Zorn's first year.
Yeah, it was.
Yikes. From 2008 to today. Well, not even today. You don't even have to go that far. Fourth place. RG3, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Fourth place. 2015, they finished first in the division again with Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
That was when they were...
You like that year.
Yes. They lost to a bad Packers team in the playoffs. People forget that. Since then, they have finished third, fourth, a first-place finish in the fake year, 2020.
Oh, yeah. Weren't they below 500 that year?
Yeah, they went 7-9, won their division.
Yeah.
And covered the spread against Tom Brady in the playoffs. That was their high point of that season. And then third place last year. And they suck this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's them for the last 15 years. So even the RG3 year, they went 10-6. They immediately in the next 2 years went a combined 7-25.
Do they have any highlights of playoff victories that would be in high definition?
Of playoff victories? No, the last time they won a playoff game, they beat the Buccaneers 17-10 in 2005, the second year under Gibbs.
Yeah.
Gibbs the second time. Do you know who the coach was immediately before Joe Gibbs the second time?
Oh, no, it wasn't Jay Gruden. That was after.
That was several coaches after, actually.
Oh, no. It's eluding me. Like Russ Grimm or somebody like that?
I'm going to tell you what. I don't know about them financial records.
Oh, that's right.
In Washington.
It was the ball coach.
Tell you those financial records in Tennessee got them a bunch of citrus bowls. It was the head ball coach, Steve Spurrier.
It was the ball coach.
I love the head ball coach so much. Yeah, he coached for them for 2 years. They went 12-20, and he left and went to South Carolina.
But yeah, like the broader point is this franchise has largely been a joke.
It's a criminal organization.
Ever since Snyder owned it, just from a football perspective. And now we find out that, yeah, they're crooks. They're financial crooks. Like Snyder is on borrowed time. We are in the last days of the Dan Snyder era of Washington professional football. And that's good for the league.
Yes. Every team in the league wants nice new stadiums because the new stadiums include more club seats. Money from club seats and PSLs and all that gets put into league revenue sharing, which means more money for the rest of the league. Washington's got a passionate fan base. They just don't show up because A, the stadium's a dump in a bad part of the area, and B, the team sucks, and it sucked for a long time. The league wants them to build a new stadium. Washington wants a new stadium. Lawmakers in Maryland and Virginia have told Dan Snyder to go kick rocks because they keep committing crimes. So here's my question for you. Who's next? Not in terms of who will get defrauded by the Washington ownership group, but who owns the team next?
Bezos is a good guess.
It's going to be interesting, though, now that Amazon is a media partner of the NFL, because Bezos stepped down from being chairman or whatever, but he's still part of their board of directors.
Yeah, he might have to divorce himself entirely from Amazon, which he's no stranger to divorce. That was mean. Man, why? I need to.
Oh, man.
I didn't need to sideswipe Bezos like that.
Destroying this man.
I mean,
Elon Musk spent like $40 million more to buy Twitter than he would have needed to buy Washington, and the Commanders would have been a better investment.
You mean 40 billion?
40 billion, yes.
Yeah. No, he literally did.
Take a little chunk of that, buy the Commanders instead of buying the Twitter machine. Come on.
Right.
Somebody said Bezos' ex-wife will buy the Commanders. She's got the money.
Yeah, she does. I think she's also going through another divorce.
Yes, she is. She married like a high school teacher. And now is getting divorced 2 years later. But he's got tons of money probably. She's going to have to pay him alimony.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to own it, but it just, as long as it isn't Dan Snyder, it's just better for the league to have, 32 franchises that aren't Ponzi schemes.
Who is the guy who tried to buy the Broncos? Allen, I think.
Yeah,
the media. He's a media mogul.
Byron Allen? Was it Byron Allen?
I believe it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's got a chance because he's a Washington guy.
Yeah, he can get back in the game. Yeah, that way.
I would not be surprised about that one bit. We've got to take a break. That'll do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We only got to a couple of them today, but they were pretty significant. Bill Self is suspended, and the Commanders are being investigated by the feds. So thank you to Blue Dot, BlueDotOfKansas.com. Check out our friends for all of your needs for heating, cooling, plumbing. They'll take care of all of them, in fact, with their peak performance safety check. Again, their website, BlueDotKansas.com. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, the college football playoff rankings came out. Were they fair to the Big 12? We'll get to that next on 580 Sports Talk. We're back on 580 Sports Talk here in this 5 o'clock hour, 5:34 on the clock, in fact, here in God's time zone. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you. Appreciate you listening in on the Sports Voice of Kansas or checking us out on the Sports on 580 YouTube channel. Give us a subscription. Why not? What harm can it do? Who would die?
It's free.
It is free.
We're not going to charge you $8 a month for it. It's free.
No. 0.1
it will
for
remain
us,
free.
minus 1 point for Elon Musk. The college football playoff rankings came out last night. We'll run you through the important ones. Number 1, Tennessee. Number 2, Ohio State. They jumped Georgia, who's number 3. Clemson is 4. Trash. Get Clemson out of my face. Michigan is 5, so they're just on the outskirts. Alabama is 6. They're in the window at 7-1. They jumped TCU, which is 8-0. And, of course, the argument for TCU was dumb as hell. Well, we want a complete offensive and defensive team, so TCU's not in. Yeah, Tennessee's not winning because of their defense, guys. Give me a break. Give me a break.
No, they come up with the rankings, and then they come up with ways to justify the rankings. That's what that whole TV show is about, is coming up with ways to justify the rankings. Like, you want to rank Clemson ahead of Michigan? Well, let's see, how can we justify that? Well, Michigan played a legitimately terrible non-conference schedule. They played Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn, I think, is their non-conference schedule. Yeah. Not in that exact order, but those are the teams they play in the non-conference. Like, yeah, that's stinky. But, like, if you wanted to rank Michigan over Clemson, you could easily pick something else out about Clemson that's negative and use that to justify ranking Michigan above them. Like, you're ranking the teams for a television show, and then we yell about it. Yeah, so we yell about it, and then your explanations are retrofitted to match the rankings that you come up with. That we see through it. So TCU is number 7. That's the highest Big 12 team. K-State's number 13. I do think that part's fair. I think that's a good place for K-State. Yeah. Right around where they are in the AP poll. Oklahoma State is 18th, and Texas is 24th. Future Big 12 member UCF, by the way, is 25th. Does this feel right? Does this feel fair? I mean, I guess it's pretty hard on the Big 12. Like we said, where they had TCU was going to be really revealing, and what it reveals is that nobody other than TCU has a chance to make the college football playoff, and that if TCU loses, they're not making the college football playoff. Like, they would have to run the table, and they need some help. Like, that's the hierarchy right now. And that's what they think of the Big 12 right now. There's a lot of undefeated teams. 6 right now, just in the top 7. I mean, it should, if we're talking logically, come down to this. Do you have a blemish on your record? No. Okay, well, then you're one of the top 6 teams. Do you have a loss? Yes. Okay, sorry, you're behind everybody else. Like, it's got to be resume over expectation or brand or whatever. Like, the games have to mean something. There's a lot of this left to go. There's plenty of time still to figure out who is going, not all these teams are going to go undefeated. Michigan plays Ohio State. Georgia and Tennessee play this week. So there's going to be a big shift at the top. I am a little surprised they didn't put Georgia number 2 just to hype up 1 versus 2. I am a little bit surprised by that. It is 1 versus 2 in the AP poll, I believe. I think. Or is that 1 versus 3 as well? I'm actually not remembering who's at the top of the AP poll right now. No, I think it is 1 versus 3 still. No, it's 1 versus 2. Georgia is 1, Tennessee is 2 in the AP poll. Okay, yeah. The ESPN standings have the football playoff ranking. Gotcha. All right, so with this in mind, because I think it was unfair to the Big 12 too. TCU deserves better than that. Just 2014 all over again. Unbelievable. I'm still salty. I don't care that Ohio State won the championship that year. All right, so I got this inspiration from, I talked about this earlier, Spencer Hall. Everyday should be Saturday. Now he's at like 900 different places, shut down Fullcast, all that. He and his cohorts do the top whatever every week. College football teams, college football people, things loosely related to college football, or sports, things that are totally unrelated to college football. Just a ranking every week. So I thought about our personal top whatever. Now, I would think we should probably keep this generally about college football and college football teams. What's your top 5 in college football right now? It doesn't have to be top 5 teams in terms of performance. It can be top 5 most fun, top 5 best offenses, top 5 storylines you care about the most, something like that. Right now, as of this day, November 2nd, what's your college football top 5? My top 5. I would have to put Tennessee at the top. They've been a really fun story. It's fun to see Tennessee football this relevant again. They've got a huge stadium. They got a passionate fan base. They've got a great history. Like, I remember in the 90s when they won that national championship with T. Martin and Peerless Price. They were really cool. They got the checkerboard end zones. They've got they've got a lot of orange going on. Like it's cool to see a program like this really insinuate themselves into the national title picture the way that they have. So yeah, I got to give Tennessee my number 1 ranking, and I got to give Georgia my number 2 ranking because I still think they're the best team until proven otherwise, which may be on Saturday. But I do think Georgia is the best team. To rank 3 more coming up behind them, my number 3 is just the Big 12. Like the Big 12 conference, because they are fun and they are deep, and every game in the league is worth watching, which is not a thing you can say about the other Power 5 conferences. Like, you can match up any 2 teams in the Big 12. It's going to be a banger. It's going to be a good game.
Correct.
Give me a Big 12 game over a random matchup. Like, you want to watch Boston College play Pitt? No, I'd rather vomit.
Absolutely.
I'd rather eat my own vomit.
People forget Desmond Howard picked Pitt to make it to the playoff.
Yeah, he sure did. And Texas A&M. And Baylor, who is also not going to make the playoff. But, like, you don't want to watch that. You don't want to watch any Big Ten West teams play each other. You don't want to watch Colorado play Cal. That game was gross, violently disgusting.
Very gross.
So the Big 12, the depth of their conference, they are number 3 on my ranking. Number 4 in my ranking is the game. Ohio State, Michigan, because we are on track for having Ohio State and Michigan be football Armageddon. 2 12-0 teams. There's no reason those 2 teams shouldn't be undefeated when they play each other in Columbus the day after Black Friday. And those 2 teams being undefeated, playing for the championship of each other, which is way more important than the championship of the Big Ten East to both of those schools, man, sign me up. It may not be the most cleanly played game. Ohio State runs a lot of stupid offensive plays, and Michigan is terrible in the red zone. But you know what? Those are 2 very talented teams that hate each other, and they're going to beat each other with sacks of doorknobs for 60 minutes, and it's going to be really fun. So the game is my number 4 ranked team, and my number 5 ranked team is, I'm going to put ranked number 5, the Tulane Green Wave.
Tulane rules. They are awesome.
They're the best of the G5 teams. They have as good a win as anyone in the country coming on the road to beat Kansas State. Willie Fritz is a Kansas guy. He's got that team winning, and they've got an inside track at a New Year's 6 game. So shout out to the Green Wave. Also the best helmets in college football.
Correct.
So they got that going for them too. So that's my top 5.
They're 19th in the country. That is awesome. Shout out to Willie Fritz. Shout out to Michael Pratt, the rest of the Green Wave. All right, so mine is mostly based on watchability. The teams that are, yes, I have to watch them, must watch TV. I've got the same top 2, though. Number 1 is Tennessee, because I think they might be the best team in the country this year. Their defense is spotty. I don't care. Their offense is amazing. Hendon Hooker should win the Heisman Trophy. They are awesome. Georgia is number 2 because their defense, there's not a lot of defense that is like must see, must watch. A lot of good defense gets kind of ugly. Like Iowa's got a good defense. Now their offense is also its own case, but I don't really want to watch Iowa defense. I just know that they're good. Number 3 for me is USC. USC, I think, might have a better pure offense than Tennessee. Like, Tennessee's awesome. All around, maybe the best team. USC is incredibly fun to watch. I don't like USC. I've never really liked the brand of USC. They're the most fun football team in the country. So give me number 3. Get USC number 3. Number 4 is Ohio State when they have to be good. Against Penn State, they just played with their food for like 3.5 quarters. Whatever. Like, we're playing against Sean Clifford and James Franklin. We're fine. Then all of a sudden, hey, you kind of were goofing around too much. You have to play. All of a sudden, they became 2001 Miami mixed with 2019 LSU. Like, they were incredible for the last 12 minutes of their game with Penn State.
Yeah, they were.
So Ohio State when they have to play. Number 5 is Kansas if Jalen Daniels is playing. Kansas with Jason Bean, top 25 on offense. Kansas with Jalen Daniels, much watch TV. I think he might play this weekend. I really think he's going to play. Put Kansas in the top 5 for me.
I'd love to see it.
Tulane would be my number 6, by the way, because Tulane is awesome. And they have a great mascot, and they have a great logo, and they have a great coach. Love Tulane. That's our top whatever. We'll do this next week when the playoff committee inevitably makes us furious yet again. Right now, though, we owe you a commercial break. Got to pay the bills a little bit. We'll come back. Dan's final thoughts on K-State versus Washburn last night. A lot of positivity coming out of Bramlage Coliseum yesterday evening. We'll get to that coming up next year on 580 Sports Talk. Finishing things up here on 580 Sports Talk on this Wednesday afternoon with Brendan and Dan. We will get to K-State hoops in just a second. Some final thoughts on that game last night. I do have to bring up, this is also one thing about the live stream. My hair is a mess right now. And now every time I look at the stream to make sure it's up, I look at it and say, oh my God, what's going on? So now I can be self-conscious in front of everyone as well. The most important thing.
That's going to be helpful for me, too. That's really going to keep me honest about facial grooming in particular.
True. Oh, yeah. I got to shave, man. I look disgusting. I look so gross. You can grow like a decent beard. We both did it during the pandemic. Like, who am I going to see? Who cares? Who cares?
I looked a lot like Tommy Fleetwood after a while.
I can't. Like, there's a little patch right underneath the corners of my mouth that it doesn't grow. I can't grow hair there.
Yeah, it'd be like that sometimes.
It does. I got to shave. It's nasty. I'm just lazy. I had to share the most important piece of news I learned today. The interim athletic director at Mississippi State's name is Bracky Brett. We did a deep Google search, and we could not find a full legal name. As far as I'm aware, his given birth name, his name at the hospital is Bracky.
That baby was born and laid in the bed and taken to the room where all the babies sleep, and their parents pointed at that baby and said, "That's Bracky."
I thought at first
we are naming him Bracky.
I thought at first it was like Bracky, Brett. Like, oh, Brett Bracky. Okay, no, his name is Bracky Brett.
Brackey, Bracky Brett.
Not even an E. It goes right to the Y.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there's no Bracky.
I couldn't believe it.
It has to be short for something.
Like Braxton? Shortened to Bracky? I don't know, man. I could not believe that his name was Bracky. That's a new one.
Bracky Brett. It's the alliteration that really sets it apart.
Yeah, it really is.
Like, it wouldn't be nearly as good if he was like Bracky Williams. Or Bracky,
you're right.
Bracky Johnson. No, it had to be something like Bracky Brett.
Bracky Johnson played in the ABA. Played for the Spirits of St. Louis.
Bracky Johnson, well-traveled ABA star.
Had a sick afro.
Played for the Pittsburgh Condors.
Do you want to get some final thoughts from you on K-State versus Washburn last night? Game final score was about what you would expect. Washburn, good D2 team. They put up a fight for quite some time. Brett Ballard's group, obviously, they were playing hard. They will play their first regular season game coming up next Friday. K-State, though, a lot of positive vibes coming from Cats fans last night. And I can understand the people who say, all right, chill out. You're playing a D2 school. Let's chill. Game didn't even count. But I can also understand, hey, the offense didn't look like toilet water. That was fun. There was the team was crashing the glass. They were playing fast. They were playing above the rim a little bit. I can understand why there was some heightened expectation from this group and some heightened excitement.
It's the way that they play. It is going to endear themselves. It's going to endear this team, I think, to Kansas State fans right from the get-go. I don't know if they're going to be a great offensive team. Outside of Keontae Johnson, I don't know who creates their own offense. Maybe Naquan Tomlin. I'm really intrigued by him. He's super long, 6'10", real stretchy, and he can shoot. He's got the willingness to shoot. They don't look like they're going to be a great perimeter shooting team. They're going to get a lot of second chance points. They're going to get a lot of, chippies around the basket. They got some flyers. They got some kids who can elevate. But the thing that is going to endear them to fans and make them, I think, interesting to watch this year is how hard they play. Jake Lamont and I had the same exact thought independently of each other. He took off his headset at one point, we're at the under 12 media timeout. And he looked over at me and he said the exact thing I had been thinking to say to him, which was, boy, they defend a lot like Baylor. Like the way they play, their effort level, the fact that no pass is easy, that no shot is not contested, that every rebound, it looks like there are 6 guys somehow underneath the basket fighting for the rebound on both offense and defense. It looked like the kind of team that Jerome Tang was an assistant at Baylor. They're going to play like that on the defensive end. They're going to bring that kind of effort. If they bring that kind of effort against Washburn in an exhibition game, I can bet you they're going to bring that effort every night in the Big 12 Conference. And I don't know how many games it's going to mean that they win, but they're going to play their butts off. They're going to engage with the student section. I thought that was a really neat deal. They thanked the student section for coming, and they said that's going to be a tradition, something that they do. It's going to be a program that I think people really rally around and get excited about following in Manhattan. I really think people are going to warm to this program, even if the results don't come immediately. The way that they play is going to be so appealing, I think, because they are going to play so hard.
We have a texter who asks, good enough for a 600 record this season. So I'm going to take overall schedule, not Big 12 schedule for sure. K-State's got 31 regular season games.
So they have to win 20?
19. 18.6.
Yeah.
So round it up to 19.
I don't think they're getting there.
19 and 12 would be an awesome year.
It gets you to the tournament.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
no doubt.
600 winning percentage gets you the tournament.
It gets you an 8 seed.
That's their goal. That's their stated goal. They're not talking about rebuilding. Nobody thinks that's what they're there for. They're there to win, and Jerome Tang wants to go to the NCAA tournament. I'm not there yet. I have to see the shooting get better, and I have to find out who's their go-to guy going to be other than Johnson. Like if he
gets in foul trouble, where do you go?
Right. Like where do they go? How do the rotations settle themselves? I think it's a little too early to say that, but I'll say this. I didn't see anybody who took the floor for them last night, and they played everybody even down to the walk-ons. Like of their scholarship guys, I didn't see anybody who I felt like would be out of place. Like I don't know who that guy guards, or I don't know if that guy can really play. Like they physically and athletically and effort-wise look like a team that's going to create some havoc throughout the Big 12 schedule. I think they'll be better than people think. I'm not ready to call them an NCAA tournament team yet, but I think they're going to be a lot better than people expect.
We have a texture from the 785 who I respect their excitement for K-State. They say 20 wins for K-State. Texter says, you have 17 single-game parlays and won't take KSU 19-plus wins. That's pretty funny. We do have to take a quick break. We'll come back with the final word after this on 580 Sports Talk. We got to go rapid fire with a real quick final word. Dan.
Excited to see what the reaction is for Jerome Tang's K-State Wildcats. Students seem invested. That's really key.
My final word, there is a real-life human being whose name is Bracky Brett, and I truly cannot get over it. That does it for 580 Sports Talk. We're back tomorrow from 3 to 6. For Dan, I'm Brendan. See you then.